Hello, parents. This is Scott Giamini. I wanted to come to you with a quick video to talk about something new I introduced. Well, I should say new because some of the kids are aware of it. Previously, they use it either in last year's with a virtual setting or they use it in the classroom. They may use it 2 years ago when they were in fourth grade. But it's a free extension called Kami. And I was able to find a PDF of both Hatchet, which we're reading with ELA, and then The Girl Who Drank the Moon, which we're reading with ELA Plus. I'm going to model the whole feature, some of the features of Kami with you. So I apologize for reading to you. Now, again, I understand that there's a big difference for some of us as far as physically holding a book to read and then looking at a screen. And trust me, I know I have a 17-year-old daughter. She's on her cell phone more than I would like, and she's on a computer probably a great deal at school and taking her Chromebook to school. So I understand that looking at a screen is sometimes the last thing we want our kids to be engaged in. But I want to kind of look at this not as so much more screen time, but as more as interactively engaging with the text. And because our students can't physically write in the book unless you want to go purchase a copy, which it's unfair of me to ask you to buy 5 novels throughout the school year. You have other expenses that come across the table as opposed to buying a book. But also, if you have a copy of Hatchet or your child has come across or come home with a copy, they're a little beaten, they're a little worn. Now, the ELA Plus book, it's brand new. So sometimes too, there's when you get a book and it's in great condition, there's that ownership, that pride you take in maintaining that level of integrity in the book. When you come home with a copy of Hatchet where the spine's broken, maybe a page is coming loose, there's that tendency for us to say, well, somebody else has already trashed it, so what does it matter if I dog ear the pages? So let me get off any kind of where I don't want to say that one's better than the other, but let me explain how annotating it using Kami might be more beneficial for us engaging in the literature and getting more out of it as opposed to the old writing on post-it notes. So if I just take a look, I'm just going to read this page and show you some options. So I'm going to start here. What was there to eat? And again, if you don't understand Hatchet or you're not familiar with the story Hatchet, young boy Brian on a plane crashed. He's now attempting to survive in the Canadian wilderness until he is rescued. He lives in New York City, so survival skills are minimal at best, and he's trying to kind of navigate his way around these surroundings in order to find his basics: food, shelter, water. So he's already landed on on the shore here. He's developed a shelter. Now he's looking for something to eat. So what was there to eat? What had he read or seen that told him about food in the wilderness? Hadn't there been something? A show, yes, a show on television about Air Force pilots and some kind of course they took. A survival course. All right. He had the show coming into his thoughts now. The pilots had to live in the desert. They put them in the desert down in Arizona or someplace, and they had to live for a week. They had to find food and water for a week. For water, they had made a sheet of plastic into a dew gathering device, and for the food, they ate lizards. That was it. Of course, Brian had lots of water, and there weren't too many lizards in the Canadian woods that he knew. One of the pilots used a watch crystal as a magnifying glass to focus the sun and start a fire, so they didn't have to eat the lizards. Now, first thing I want to tie into here is he watched a show, so I want to highlight this. Now, I have some different options here. I want to leave a comment. Now, as I talk today in class with the kids, I like to highlight ideas or thoughts, maybe foreshadowing this that in one color, and then maybe there's vocabulary words I don't understand. I'll highlight in a different color. That way, as I go through my notes, the different colors stand for something differently. So I'm going to go here. A show, yes, a show on television, a survival course. What I'm going to comment here is, and notice the comment section is, Brian is recalling. I'm going to say Brian is connecting shows to his current situation. And I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to put in front of this. This might be for some foreshadowing by the author. Maybe now we're going to see Brian use some of these ideas to help him. All right. So I'm going to click off on that, and you'll notice it stays highlighted, and my comment stays right there. Now I'm going to scroll down a little bit more. One of the pilots used a watch crystal as a magnifying glass to focus the sun and start a fire. Hey, now you wouldn't know this, parents, but early in the story we talked about how Brian does have a watch. It's broken, but maybe this again. I'm going to ask a question. Can Brian use his watch to start a fire. So now the notes can become more personalized, if you will. But Ryan had a ditto watch without crystal, broke it at that. So that show didn't help him much. All right, so now I've answered my question. But again, it's me engaging with the text. Wait, there was one thing. One of the pilots, a woman, had found some kind of beans on a bush, and she had used them with her lizard meat to make a little stew in a tin can she had found. Bean lizard stew. There weren't any beans here, but there must be berries. So there had to be berry bushes around. Sure, the woods are full of berry bushes. That's what he always says. Well, he'd actually never heard anybody say it, but he felt that it should be true. There must be berry bushes. He stood and moved out into the sand and looked up at the sun. And again, I could continue to read, but this is how we're beginning to engage with the text a bit more. As I continue to read, it talks more about the pilot and her finding things, and her finding things. But again, now it says if his mother hadn't begun to see him. Oh, so now we go back into some other text, where later text where it talks about Brian saw his mother with another gentleman that wasn't his father. And so we see this repeated thing here. So again, I'm going to highlight this. And I'm going to put divorce. And this would be the students where it says, I'm going to put the secret. The keyboard's not cooperating with me. Again, so this is that repetition. And I'm going to put repetition. So this is a repeated thing. If I can spell repetition right, let's see here. There we go, Scott. All right. So again, we kind of get this idea. Now I'm seeing common themes throughout. He has this displaced or this anger towards his mother. All right. And it's again, he feels that his mother is the one who put him in this situation. Anger towards mother about the situation. All right. Now, if I continue on, I could scroll down. I'm looking for maybe a word that maybe the kids, here you go, his back along the ridge. So now I'm going to highlight this word, but I'm going to change the color. So go over here, highlight. What is a ridge? The kids may not know this. We don't live necessarily in an suburban or a rural. There we go. Let's figure out my government here. We don't live in a rural thing. So what's a ridge? So now I can come up here and I could look at dictionary. Now let's see how I use this option. Again, I'm a little bit new with this too. So if I highlight ridge, will it allow me to find ridge? Oh, it's not acknowledging. It's not. There we go. See, make has that long hyphen at the end. Let's see if this works. A ridge. Hey, a long, narrow strip of hilltop. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to copy it. Then I go back to ridge. And I'm going to provide my own highlight comment on that. But I'm going to change color, recall, because I want that to be a vocab term. So change the color. Now highlight it. There you go. And I'm going to put a V for vocab. Paste that definition there. So now I recall, oh, wait, that's a ridge. Oh, it's a long, narrow hilltop. It allows me to better understand what I'm reading. So again, there's other options here. We can provide, we could put in, we could screen capture something. We could also even put in images of something. We could add a media. We could add a Google image. Maybe I add a Google image to what is a ridge. So if I go here to Google, let's see if I could type in ridge. And I hit search. Okay, so now I have a better idea of what it looks like, a mountainous area. So now if I take one of these pictures, I could put one in here that I like. I'll just go, let's go here. So I could select, and now we have that. I'm going to put it right here. Oh, where'd it go? Click to drop. And I don't really want it there. I'm hoping it's somewhere I could crop this, because again, I'm getting used to this myself. It won't let me go outside the text necessarily, but now I could play with this, and the kids are obviously much more technically savvy than you or I, and they can figure out how to add that somewhere. So that might be something I do where I could also do some images to help me. I'm going to delete that. So again, I'm not utilizing this to replace hard copy books. Just utilize it to help the kids annotate. It also helps when we start to have some short answer extended response questions where they could use text and go back to text to find support. It'd also be good with our longer one-paragraph essays, if you will, that kind of encompasses the entire book in a common theme, if you will. So we can kind of find that as well. So I hope that helps explain. So if you see your child at home using this, maybe it helps a little bit in understanding the use of Kami. Feel free if you have any questions, comments, concerns. I'm always able to address anything that you may have. Thank you for your time. Take care.